This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry.
We figured it out. We got around it. There we go. Fucking technology.
Oh, we figured it out. I don't know what was going on there. That was great.
I don't know. Chances are you've got some privacy settings on your personal Instagram that makes it all hinky-dinky.
Nothing private about this. I don't know what that is.
How's your Sunday, sir?
Oh, it's going well. It's going well. I just started this new challenge today. It's called 5K a day. So it's like a half-hour run every day. You got to get that target. And then, it's just, I tell you what, since this quarantine happened, I've never worked so hard. This is the hardest I've been working for a long time. So I just need to get out, clear my head, get a little running every day.
Yeah, it's been the same for me. I actually just did an episode for the podcast yesterday about 5 things all hospitality staff should be doing right now. And one of them was self-care. And I was like, I have not been self-caring. Like,
it's easy to write those lists, though.
Yeah, it's on the list, but I'm not doing it. Very
doesn't mean it's not good advice, doesn't it?
Well, when I was in Singapore, I was like eating well in Singapore. I was walking like 25,000 steps a day in Singapore. And then the last couple of months, just with everything, I've just been stuck in my office downstairs in my basement, freaking 9, 10, 11 hours a day.
That's it. That's exactly it. Just work. And then you realize how small and confined your space is very, very quickly. It's fine to live in, but when you're doing everything in there, just get out.
And then when my pants don't fit as well as they were when I got back from Singapore, I'm just like, man, I was being so good in Singapore, and now it's just like gone to shit. Just gone to shit.
Yeah, that could be the case. That's for sure.
So I find actually the live streams on Instagram. I'm working on doing live streams on a bigger platform next week, but live streams on Instagram is really good because everybody who tunes in now gets a piece. But then I also take the video and take the video and audio and actually turn it into a podcast and a YouTube video as well.
Absolutely.
So I reuse it like 3 times. So everybody who tunes in now, if you miss anything, doesn't really matter because a podcast will be up in a week or 2. So with the Post Shift podcast, I've been doing that for about 15 months. In the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've been trying to do an episode every Monday to Friday, every day, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, I saw that. That's a big ask.
Yeah, especially when I'm the one-man crew. So I do all the editing and I do everything. But I've been trying to put people in connect people with the right information instead of it all just being on social media. So legislation changes and restaurant associations and like CPBA, their fund, the Bartenders Benevolent Fund, stuff like that. So let's kick it off. Let's introduce yourself and sort of your origin story. How did you get in the industry and that sort of thing? Because you might as well interview you as well as talk about the BBF as well.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So same as you, I came on a plane across an ocean and landed here. I was from London, so I was working in bars in London. Then came over here. Well, and Essex a little bit too, but I don't like to talk to that bit too much. It's the dark days. And then I came over here and then started doing the same thing. But that was 2008, a while ago. That was tough to get a bartending gig. If you was a guy back then, if you was anyone, because there was so much money in it. It was really, you needed that network. You needed to be elite and super tough. But yeah, cracked into that. Got a job as a barback, which initially I resented, but I tell you, it was one of the best experiences I ever had. It really set me up well, because you don't get Australia, England, Britain, you don't really get barbacks, right? Like the bartenders do everything. So like you're the one changing the kegs and changing the gas and changing the bibs and ordering, taking deliveries and stuff. And bartenders here don't really do that. They kind of walk in for their shift. There's a lot of, obviously, before the shift and after the shift work to do, but it's just very different out here. And without being a barback first, I wouldn't have realized that. So it was a pretty good experience. And then moved, I was always a little bit, I just always loved throwing events and anything that kind of what you do, that, anything that can galvanize people and bring them together and get a room of like-minded people together to celebrate kind of who they are and what we all enjoy. So pretty quickly I moved into head bartender and then bar manager. And as soon as I was in that position, I was throwing events and having a great time. Then I got a job as, I was in bar chef. I was the general manager there for a little while. Had a great experience there, and then got a call from a tequila, and asked me to work for a brand instead as a brand ambassador, and did that for a few years. And now I have Drink Tank, which essentially allows me to do that, but I work with brands from all over. So we've got, a lot of small distributors, medium-sized distributors, big brands, small brands. We just kind of get to do, a lot of design work, a lot of advocacy work for a lot of events, help them with a lot of strategy and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely a grind being self-employed. I feel like I always wanted to be self-employed, and then I was, and very quickly realized that there's a lot of challenges in being self-employed that you don't realize that you're in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, being in charge of your own schedule, I think is super important. And but when this all happened, we was talking about the Bartenders Benevolent Fund for such a long time, and it's something that's always been, as a concept, very close to my heart. And we'd spoke about it for a while, and we wanted to get it really kind of organized and a little bit more kind of official. But there was every time it was needed there was so many gaps in between those periods, and within those gaps we went back to our day-to-day, which was a lot of, for John Humphrey, it was a lot of building up the Drake. They've got, he's the he runs all of the bars for all of the Drake hotels and the Drake properties, and they're just opening up spot after spot. So his job kept on expanding. And then Andrew is one of the other founders of the Bartenders Benevolent Fund. He's a doctor by trade, so he has a lot of clients to see during the day. So things were a little bit, and then my career kept on changing into different things, self-employed, brand ambassador, what have you. So
what year was that?
That would have been, we started in 2013, and we said, every time, I remember actually Andrew and I were sitting at the bar. I no longer worked here at this point. This would have been about 2015. We were sitting at the bar at Bar Chef, and we just ordered one of Chef Frankie's big modernist cocktails with the smoke coming everywhere and the dry ice that tastes like, mint and juniper, and just all of this crazy things, while we had a computer, kind of a little laptop set up, and we were signing off the, officially making the Bartenders Benevolent Fund a non-for-profit. And there was a lot that led up to that. Do we want to be a charity? Do we want to be a non-for-profit? What's the difference? What are the pros and cons of both of them? And so we set a cocktail bar, one of my favorite in the world, and turned the Bartenders Benevolent Fund into a non-for-profit. And it wasn't until this happened that we said, now there's just this continuous need for it. So there's no distractions. This is kind of it. And I voluntarily, said, Drink Tank and a lot of the things that, once we'd closed off everything, we were in the middle of a series of events around St. Patrick's Day. We were hosting a bunch of Irish whiskey tastings in bars around the city, and those kind of, when the bars and restaurants closed down, they had to stop. So we just switched straight onto the BBF, and we've been working on it now for about 3 weeks solidly. Even though we're in quarantine, and I'm blessed I'm not living by myself. That would drive me insane. So I have my wife and my 2 dogs here with us, and I'm super happy about that. But I think that I've seen Andrew and John and all the other new members that we've brought in, even more so than my wife. We wake up in the morning, there's a message from John or Andrew, 8 o'clock in the morning. You're like, okay, let's get back to work then. Yeah, but so
is your focus cool. Basically full time right now, just strictly been the BBF?
It's just we're talking about positives in the situation that we're in right now, but there are a lot of positives in this, in the need for what we built. And thank you very much for joining on and for being a part of kind of what this is. Really appreciate it. I mean, between you and everyone else, we've got, Amber and Shiva and Caitlin and everyone that we have out in BC. Just some of the biggest names, and Calgary, some of the biggest names in the business. It's really nice that I think that something just kind of got, and obviously Alex in BC as well. It's really nice that it's everyone is kind of rallied behind it. It's not anything less than, it's an ability to, it's a vehicle that allows us to help those that we do honestly care about. I mean, every market is with this essentially empowered to look after their own market and to turn it into something that they can kind of own. So yeah, I think we're going to keep it full time right now because the momentum is really, really good, and I'm just going to focus on this. We'll get it over the hill, which will probably be by the end of next week, with regards strictly to the back end and a lot of processes in place, and then I'll start slowly bringing back my own company and start working on some things there. But as it is right now, there's just a lot of momentum that was required, and I feel like if that slows down, things might stop a little bit. So we're just going to keep pushing.
Well, I think the big reason why you got everybody you got from coast to coast was purely the fact that you'd set yourself up, and between you, Andrew, and John, you got the right amount of people on your sort of like core board in Toronto, and then you put mechanisms in place to make it actually work. I think there's a lot of fundraisers and GoFundMe pages and stuff like that right now that are everywhere in the US and in Canada that they don't have sort of a call to action and then a mechanism on how it's going to play out. It's
Right.
sort of like, donate money and then we'll split it between our staff, or donate money and we'll split it between our city's industry and stuff like that. Whereas I think the BBF has got some serious mechanisms, and I think that's the reason why you got everybody on board. Because to be honest, like from my point of view, like when Andrew first reached out to me, I was like, oh shit, do I want to take on something else
Exactly.
to do? And
Exactly.
then like
Especially for someone like yourself.
we had a few meetings and we had a few chats. And I'm like, oh, this is really easy. Like this is literally, here you go, pour through it for a couple of hours and then put them back in with the board and away you go.
That's it. And that speaks to specifically kind of these what we've called disbursement panels that are in every kind of essentially every province, but for the most part every region, because some provinces are lumped together just based on population spread for the most part. But yeah, it's essentially the system we set up. We wanted the applications for people that are in financial hardship, which we all are to a certain extent, but those that are in the most amount of financial hardship, we wanted to set up a system that they can be there. It sounds so harsh saying it, but they can be essentially judged by their peers and people that know most what their situation is. I mean, the Vancouver hospitality scene is wildly different to the Ontario hospitality scene. There's, a different culture, a different way of drinking, a different way of living. For example, your bars can close a little bit earlier, but your rent is arguably a little bit more than us, and that's a situation only people in BC are going to know. Like we can look at it from afar. So it's very important for us to get people in those markets judging those applications. But it was also very important that for two things, we permeated every part of society. So we really tried to be an organization that reaches into every area as much as possible, but at the same time we need anonymity.
No, I'm not going to be able to say it properly.
We needed everyone to be anonymous. I mean, it's hard enough for the most part to reach out for help for a lot of people. And also, I mean, there's some privacy reasons that, we need to maintain that for them. We need to make sure that everyone is comfortable in applying, that they know that their information isn't going anywhere. So, for example, you're on the disbursement panel for BC. So if we send through, these are the applications that we have for BC, you'll never know who you're awarding money to. And that was something that was very important to us, that we reached everyone, but also no one knew kind of what was going on. So I'll never know who benefits directly from this. You won't, and none of us will. And it's frankly not our business. All we need to do is set up the mechanism so that those that need help can get help. And we're lucky right now. We've had a lot of big brands show us a lot of really good support, a lot of small brands that are showing us support in really interesting ways as well. We've got a few conversations going on with, I can't say anything just yet, but like we have some national ideas going along with, certain sales come towards us. So we're helping, small distilleries and breweries, and they're helping us back. And it's a lot. Obviously, last week we announced that Diageo had given us a huge sum of money. So that's great. And then we've got another few announcements hopefully coming in the next couple of weeks of things that we figured out in the back end. And then on top of that, we'd like the income to be subsidized with provincially led initiatives as well. So hopefully no one's coming in with a statement like they are in, say, the States. You get Campari are offering give $1 million between 4 or 5 organizations, and Patron gave $1 million, and XYZ is given $1 million. We won't have that, but we're always looking at the scale of it, right? Like we have the states have 10 times as many people as us, so $1 million is 10 times more than what we should be expecting. Yeah. So like $100,000 for us is $1 million in equivalent. So that's kind of how we look at it.
Do you think the government? I've been asking this question a lot, and you're plugged into the industry enough. Do you think the government is fully understanding now? And I've asked some pretty big players in the industry right now, understand how big the hospitality industry is, and the scope of staff in the industry, as well as how much impact it has on our general economy.
Yeah, they have to, right? I mean, I don't work directly in the hospitality industry anymore, so I don't own a bar or run a bar, and I'm not a bartender, but my life will always be, just like yourself, inextricably tied to the hospitality industry. And when they don't make money, I don't make money too. I mean, we're very connected in that way. But there's still been a lot of stats that have come out last couple of weeks, and there's been a lot of really great people that are championing making sure this information gets out that I didn't even know. So how would a politician know this information if I'm this close to the hospitality industry and I don't know? So when you look at facts like 800,000 people have been put out of work, 1 out of 10 bars is already permanently closed. When you look at these pieces of information, like I am incredibly confident that the people that need to see this are seeing it. I think that it would be unavoidable in the next month, 2 months, when they start seeing all these businesses have closed because they couldn't afford their rent. And these businesses predominantly are hospitality, bars, restaurants, things like that. Then maybe they'll start seeing, okay, these are the first ones hit and they're hitting such big numbers. What's going on there? And they will inevitably come to the conclusion that the margins are razor thin and that things really need to change for us to develop. I remember it's about 7 or 8 years ago when we were here and we were really pushing. Toronto, obviously, Vancouver has different places in the States that they look at for, inspiration or competition. And Toronto is very close to New York, so we have a lot of that. How far are we away from New York? We're 5 years away, we're 6 years away. We were getting so close at one point, but I feel like there's just, I don't know. I feel like they're gonna get hit, and I don't know what's gonna happen coming out of this for our industry here in Ontario or yours or the Maritimes or the Prairies or kind of any of those situations. I just have no idea. We don't know how long this is going to last for, obviously. We have a model with the Bartenders Benevolent Fund that is it replicates every single week. So we announce how many grants we're offering per province on the Monday, and on the Tuesday people can apply, the applications open up, and then we award the money starting on the Sunday, and then it starts trickling out after that, and then it resets every week. And after this is finished, we still want to be here, and we're going to be a little bit more of a consistent model, and things will change. But as it is, we're just trying to funnel that money out. Imagine if, because a lot of bartenders, they don't have savings, right? And they don't have, like, they just haven't thought about the nature of how they work and the hours they keep and how long they're at work and the fact that, and how they get paid. There's just not a lot of structure. I mean, I'm hopeful that things can come out of this, that bartenders work more hours than your average office employee, office-based employee. Yet for some reason, your office-based employee can almost be guaranteed to get, our holiday and benefits, and your bartender doesn't. So, I mean, ultimately, maybe something like the BPF or the CPBA or something like that can afford to bring that level up as well, so that bartenders are kind of seen in the same light, and service staff as well. But yeah, we'll see how this goes. I just know that we have this model that we have now, and then hopefully everything will slow down, and this will be past us, and then I think things are going to definitely change for the good. But we're going to have to go through a lot of hardship before we get to that point. That's how I see it.
Yeah, you briefly mentioned, how do you see the BBF existing after? Imagine we're hypothetically past COVID, everybody's like 60% of places are reopened, staff are rehired, stuff like that. How do you see the BBF evolving and continuing to support the industry long term after all this is all over?
Well, I think it will. The urgency will go down. The need for it will go down. and the speed of everything, I think, will slow down in that our systems will be tested and will be in place and will be, everything would have been stress tested, and it will be a little bit more ergonomic. Everything will be a little bit more automatic at that point. The funding will slow down. We won't get these big amounts coming from these really generous and amazing spirits brands that they've given us, so much cash, just like Diageo just did. So that stuff will slow down, and anything that goes into it would be a little bit more kind of regionally and provincially brought up. But we're still certainly going to be here after that. Like the Bartenders Benevolent Fund, now that it's launched, isn't going anywhere. We started it 7 years ago. Was when I didn't start it, actually. Andrew and Jonathan started it, and they were putting together a lot of like bartender appreciation nights where they would bartend and all the tips would go into a holding account, and then that would be distributed out if anyone needed it. But there wasn't any rules or regulations. And then I remember I was working in a really big restaurant that turned into a nightclub, those kind of things. And you don't get too many of them anymore, but I was working in one of those that's called a lounge or a supper club, whatever nice name they give them. So I was working in one of those, and there was a server there, just an absolutely amazing guy. He was out at a bar one night. He was super drunk. He fell down some stairs and he hit his head into the wall at the bottom of the stairs and broke his neck. And he ended up in one of those halos that drill into your shoulder bones and into your head. Like, oh, it's just horrible. And he was out of work for 6 months. And I couldn't help but think, if that happened to me, based on as an everyday bartender, without the savings, without the support mechanisms, here in a country by myself, without family around, I'd have to go back to England. I've got a dog here that's super problematic, and I really empathize with him and put myself in his position and realize there is just no support. Like, if we're doing well now, the community is doing so well. There's a lot of, I've got a certified accountant, and I'm going to give you an audience of bartenders and teach them how to be better with money. And I saw that, CPBA had put that on, and the Top Black Sessions here in Ontario did something like that a couple of weeks ago. And we're like, and self-care and exercise and eating healthy. And these things have really, they started with like the sustainability movement, and then sustainability came, I think, away from the bar and really focused on the person, which is very similar to how when we talk about terroir in spirits or wines, for example, it was originally, like the day to night difference in fluctuation and the seasonal fluctuation, the pH, and so all this thing, and then the hand of the maker started coming in, and the person actually doing it started being a little bit more of the focus. And it's the same with sustainability in bars, is the people have really become a little bit more of that focus. It's so to me, I just realized that there wasn't anything there. I bullied my way into this, and I'll just be completely open with that. Andrew and John already had it, and I say, guys, I need to be a part of this. I want to be a part of it. I've done some research. What's that?
They don't like saying no.
They don't. No. And then we're super fortunate. And then so we had a few conversations, and then this happened, and we realized that we didn't have the bandwidth to do it ourselves, and we needed more faces and voices. We realized none of us were bartenders, the three of us, and this is a bartender, but we needed to get some bartenders in. And then we looked around and we said, who's one of the best bartenders we know that might have some bandwidth to help us, who's got a lot of respect in the industry? So we reached out to Alana, who runs and owns the Shameful Tiki here. And then we reached out to another friend of ours, Bev, and these people have just, oh my God, what they've given to this, like each one of them, it very quickly became, okay, we've got this organization, can you come in and help us? And now, like, no one's got any ownership over this anymore. It's just kind of, we meet probably every other day on Zoom. There's, either 5 of us, which is the board of directors, plus we got a lot of other people. My wife has been helping with all of the social media, so all of that voices her, all of the design work. She's been putting together. And then we got Gord Hanna, who also works at Drake Properties, who's just super lovely and likable and organized. And he's been helping us with all of our communication. And we've got this a wonderful friend of mine, Chris Chow, who's a specialist in fundraising. And she's come in, and every time, and then we've got like yourself as well. So just, it's turned into, I can't believe it's just been 3 weeks. It's really turned into something cool.
So when does it officially roll out?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
yeah. We've got money in the bank. We've got a system set up. We've got We had a meeting on Saturday with everyone across the country, and we reminded them kind of, this is the system, this is how it works. If you have any questions, let's go and let's keep in touch throughout the week, because I mean, we have systems in place, but they could only have been tested in this real world situation. There's tests we've done in the back end to make sure our applications are, being sent off in the right way, and all the systems. It's very intricate on the back end. It's the applicant fills out the application form and presses submit, and then that goes straight into another piece of framework where information then has to be blocked off, and then that information then has to be set. Any identifiable information needs to be taken off. Then that gets sent out to all of the different regions, who then grade it amongst themselves in a group, and then it gets sent back to us, and then the money gets all. So it is quite intricate on the back end, and we've done a lot of tests to make sure that all of that works really, really well, and it does. But now we've got the real life situation, which is, the thing is, we've always said, this is evolving, this is adaptable. Mm-hmm. This is essentially version 2 of the version that was born in 2003. A second version was born 3 weeks ago, and this is what it is.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so happy to be a part of it. I really am. I think it's like I said in the very beginning, it's about the mechanisms and how quickly you put the mechanisms in place. Because we can all, I've been racking my brains trying to figure out a way to raise money and all that sort of stuff. But then I look at the CPBA and yourselves and stuff, and I'm like, me doing it alone it's got no impact. But being part of something bigger is way more impactful, and it's going to give way more to way more people. So thank you very much. Good luck this week, because I know there's always boogie people in the system. But from what I saw from the screenshots yesterday, I think it's going to work out perfectly, and I'm looking forward to rolling it out and seeing how it rolls out this week.
Yeah, me too. I'm super nervous and excited, because it's all very well standing on a pedestal saying this is kind of what collectively we built and we put together, and this has been great. But now it's kind of next week is, I feel like the spotlight's really on, at least internally for us. I know there's a lot of we're going to be looking at how this works out very, very carefully this week, and to isolate any pitfalls and make sure that they're implemented quickly, so that next week it doesn't happen. But our intentions are good, and we've all worked very hard. Everyone is involved in this, and I don't think you can ask for more than those two things. So. And
what's the website to go to?
Please, yes, thank you. Go to www.bartendersbenevolentfund.ca. The application form is on there. We've got Q&As on there. We've got our own internal and external code of conduct on there, which is very important to us. And kind of how it works is all laid down on there as well. If you need to reach out to us, anyone, reach out to us on our Instagram, Bartenders Benevolent Fund on Insta, and you can send us a message from there, and we respond pretty quickly to those.
Amazing. Thanks so much, John.
Oh, buddy, nice to catch up with you, man. Thank you for having us on this.
Thanks a lot.
All right, take care, man.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, Pose Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoy sitting down with friends and peers and just chatting about the industry and getting down to the nuts and bolts of what's really going on out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, everything on all the platforms. Just hit it up, and I'll do my best to answer any queries or questions you have. I'll see you next week, guys. Bye.